Good morning, everyone. How are you guys? Yeah. How's the last 2 days of Tech Summit been? Entertaining? Yeah, great. Thanks.
Great. Hello. My name is Edson. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be able to share what we did in terms of automation and what we did in our projects. Let's share some of our goals here. I'd like to share with you what we did, the tools we used, the outcomes we had in using automation in one of our projects. I'd like you to have an idea on how to be able to do automation in any other business context you may have. I think Keith and I have both different scenarios that we had good outcomes with automation. And I think you'll be able to do the same for you, maybe. Okay. So just keep a brief introduction. What do robots can do? Robots can automate business processes and mimic what a human could do. In technology, using different tools, and the goal is of the robots are to do what humans do. And of course, we have some advantages and disadvantages in doing so. One of the things that is happening as times evolve, we don't need to do fancy coding anymore. So a good part of what we are automating, we are not coding anymore. So this is enabling business users to do automation by themselves. So this is good news for all the areas other than IT areas. The tools are pretty quick to deploy. I think almost anyone can make advantages on using automation and installing and using the tools. So one thing, I don't know if you had this question. Who's here is using automation already in your daily tasks? Is anyone here? Just one? 2, 3. So we have a good opportunity. I'm pretty sure we have good opportunities here to improve and leverage the use of automation. So, what would you choose to be automating in your business scenario? So, how to choose the processes? Where to get started? So. Use tasks that are high volume and highly manual tasks. This is very important because you want to automate things that are structured, that are high volume, and you don't have to do human judgment on the tasks. So if you every day do something or you have a team that is performing specific tasks, you are able to automate. And you should start there. Of course, you don't want to take one process that you run for 5 minutes once a month and automate that, because you're going to spend more time building the automation than executing that. What are the good side of automation? You don't have downtimes. You can have a robot running 24 hours a day if you want it. You can have a very good payback because once you automate one process, you can execute that infinite times if you want it. And most of the times, automation doesn't take a lot of efforts to do. So usually you have a good payback. You don't have human errors. So in my specific case, we don't have a single error in the automation we did. So our client sometimes doesn't even know we are automating some processes for them. And so, what is the maturity journey for automation? Where you can get started, where did I begin, and where you can get with automation. Automation started with integrated desktops. Some of you, if you visited a call center, you can see many systems integrated onto one single screen. That's the first generation of automation in technology. Then you have mini bots, that is the Phantom FT. This is something that is the most maybe feasible way for anyone to do it. You have free tools to do Phantom FTs if you want it. Robotic process automation is pretty much the same what mini bots do, but they can do much more complex automations, and with an easy way to record and to capture what user is doing without the need to be coding so much. And you have cognitive robotics, which I think as you saw in other sessions, we have digital virtual assistants and cognitive solutions that can figure out and learn from what you're doing. You're not able to learn something doing mini bots or with robotic process automation, just with cognitive, okay?
So to hit on this slide,
Please.
yeah. So I think Edson made a really great point about your clients not even recognizing you're automating, right? So we have a story, a client about 4 or 5 years ago. We had a resource, non-technical. He decided that he was kind of fed up with doing this reconciliation process and came up with an auto hotkey process that basically took and reconciled invoices or some process from a business process he was running. We asked him, his name was Sean, we're like, Sean, how are you doing this so fast and so accurate? And he kind of kept it to himself for a while, and he came out with it. He's like, I automated it. I used auto hotkey. And he was a very talented resource, but he wasn't a software engineer. And so we kind of looked at that and just surprised, just blown away that he came up with a process that we didn't even realize could be automated, because he saw the problem. He was moving his mouse around, and this is simulating his task, but he was able to do it at infinite pace. So we ended up taking that process he put together and moved it to Azure, turned on 5 machines, automated it, and it was a great story. And so that whole concept of automation and not even recognizing it, right? So.
Yeah. Some of these tools are not new. This is no new technology. For instance, auto hotkey. The first time I used this technology was 13 years ago, while on a deployment of Windows XP for clients. So this is no new technology. It's very mature technology. Yeah. So I'll give the words to Keith. He's going to present some of the IoT and automation case.
Sure. Yeah. So as Edson said, there's certainly maturity, right? I mean, I think a lot of the sessions over this week have been really to the far end of that spectrum, and I think most of us want to certainly get to that point, but I think our journey is going to start much further left, right? Probably Blue Prism and things like this. So for us, we used a lot of automation in an industrial IoT project. And so for us, we were really taking an existing solution that had been running for maybe 4 or 5 years in an on-prem scenario. And our goal was to figure out how to get that into the cloud in a systemic way, in a repeatable fashion. So our objective was really to move the client in a way in which that they really didn't recognize the move even occurred. The team, it was a managed service, so the team that was supporting the product really was not to be impacted in any way, and so our tooling had to kind of keep that in mind. And to, again, make it completely transparent. So our strategy was to use tools, mostly automation, some RPA, some really blurred line RPA type stuff, to do a lift and shift and do as much as we could in automated fashion. And so, again, lift, shift, that was really the objective of the project and how we got there. And some of the things that we found during that migration that were kind of surprising, where RPA kind of played a role. So the business case really was to automate everything we could, really to make sure that everything from the creation of the infrastructure, the creation of the code, the creation of the delivery of that code was done in a systemic and consistent way. So again, I won't really drain the left side here, but these are kind of all the processes that you would normally see in the DevOps tool chain. And I know, again, you could do this with a number of different tools from Octopus to VSTS to help do the orchestration. Really, the benefits for us were industrialized delivery, reducing the mean time to deliver, improving quality. Again, I think that's really a big tenet that we find in RPA. And reducing the total cost of ownership, right? And that's one of the things that RPA, automation, all these things are really out there to try to benefit from. So there's a 40% reduction of operations, and then really not to the automation, but we were able to improve the throughput by 150%. So from a cloud perspective, one of the biggest benefits is the infrastructure, the ability of being able to destroy and rebuild it. And so we've automated that whole process using all the tools that Azure allows. Auto scale, again, something that provides us the ability of being able to meet the need of the demand of the system, and then side-by-side deployment. And so I didn't go much into the technology, but if you guys have any questions, certainly let me know. I'm willing to kind of speak in detail what this kind of looks like. But again, being an industrial IoT solution, we're doing some management of assets out in the field, coming through the system. And this whole infrastructure, right, is completely automated when it comes to the building, the destruction, the scale. Something in which, at a period of time, we had a number of FTEs kind of doing this process. Today, the tools do it for us. And so, honestly, the biggest cost savings was the FTE reduction in this automation process. Yeah, another thing that we found too that was a bit of a surprise is some of the value proposition that we found inside of Azure SQL, because it's using a lot of machine learning to figure out which indexes should be added and removed. And so this was one we never really even planned for, but actually became a big cost savings when it came to knowing when to scale, how to scale. Yeah, and this was a big benefit that we really didn't recognize from the beginning. Okay.
So I'll talk about the case we had. Let me give you an introduction of what's the business context we have. I think the main goal here is to show you can have different business scenarios, and it's kind of limitless where you can apply automation to. We are doing second-level support for clients for Exchange Online and Skype for Business. We are providing support 24/7 for 50,000 users. So we had one of the challenges we have is we are providing global support. So we have different languages we're speaking to. Of course, not all of them, but English and Portuguese. Most of the interactions we have with the end users are made by the ticketing tool. And we have a very well-deployed I2 processes. I'll talk about this later, but this is something that enables and leverages the capabilities of the automation. What are the technologies we are integrating and we are deploying automation? We are deploying with Exchange Online, Skype for Business. We are interacting at the same time with Internet Explorer, PowerShell, Power BI, Excel, and the ticketing tool. So with very little effort to build automation, we could integrate all these technologies. I'll do afterwards a quick demo where I can show you how that works. But we are having a very good success in doing so. What we are doing, what we are automating, and I'll give you some examples, and you can figure out how you can do it in your business. We are doing auto sign and welcome message for users. We are escalating critical incidents. We are solving services requests like for creating mailboxes, managing distribution lists, management of configurations for Exchange Online. And the interesting part, when we estimated that project, we were estimating for about 1,200 incidents per year. And when we actually started the project, we were in a situation where we are having, on average, 1,800 incidents per month. So most of you, and a good part of you, work with IT projects. This is a very difficult situation you can have. I was very concerned on how to handle all that incidents with a team that was prepared for solving 1,200 incidents a month that were more than 15 times higher incidents that we were expecting. So I was very concerned, and we started to looking for alternatives, and we found that automation could help us a lot. And we had a good outcome. Now 80% of the service requests we are doing are solved by automation. So this solved the problem we were having at that specific client. And the team we were expecting to have for a project like that would be something around 9 FTEs, 9 resources working 24/7 to solve the incidents, to solve the service requests. And something that happens, usually happens on projects like this, is the motivation. The teams get very frustrated when they have to do tasks repeatedly. No, imagine yourself working, solving the same incident the whole day. No, creating mailbox the whole day. No, name, user, create a mailbox. This is very boring. The teams get bored. So I helped the team and motivated them to work on automation so they could improve themselves, prepare themselves for the next generation and for the future. I think for us as IT persons, we need to get deep into automation to survive the next generations, and the team really understands that as a motivator for their careers, and they are starting helping us to develop automations. What we had as results. Today our teams has 3 FTEs, only 3 FTEs are solving all the incidents and service requests we have. We have quicker response times. What we would have as 14 hours. We have SLAs to this project, so we have SLAs for the low incidents and for service requests for solve that in 40 hours. The bots solve some of them in 5 minutes. So quicker response times, quality. Our robots does not fail. They don't fail. So the quality is something our client recognizes. Avanade is doing a very good job, and they know we automate some of the processes, but they don't have the details. They don't know how far we went. I'm pretty sure our robots mimic what a human could do so well. You will see in the demo that the end client doesn't realize we are automating all the processes. The investment for all of that, 80% or 70 to 80% of our automations were developed in 3 weeks. 3 weeks of effort of one resource. So it's a huge benefit when you compare to 800 tickets per month. Time to market, when we deploy new services or we have changes to our processes, we can pretty quick adjust what our robots and our processes to do that. Our escalations are immediate. This is something very interesting because a critical incident should be responded by us in no more than 10 minutes. That means if I have one resource working for this project and this resource decides to have a cup of coffee and takes more than 10 minutes, we are going to lose the SLAs. So the best practice for a project like that is to have 2 resources working at the same time, looking at the incident too. The robots can do that for us. And when a high priority incident arrives, we are escalated by email, by phone. So bots can do a pretty good job in availability. They don't get distracted. I have one demo I recorded of one of our robots running. I'll show that to you so you can have an idea of what robots can do. This is our incident 2. No, it's a web 2. So that's the first, the most interesting part. When you think about technology, interacting with a web client is not the most fancy technology you can have. Of course, we could use web services and automation on the back end, but this client does not give us much alternatives on using a web client or web services. So we are integrating the web client with our tools. So what we did was to capture the screen and capture what a human could do. So if you see, a human is interacting with the ticketing tool, selecting the tickets that are assigned for us. So you can see the page loading. The incidents, when they arrive, they have a set of parameters. I will talk later how we did to structure that data. And what it does is to do a series of actions like extracting the incident types onto Excel files, And the tool does that by itself, okay? It's just a click, and then the incidents are extracted to an Excel file, and then the robot decides on what to do on each type of incident. So for example, like opening PowerShell, executing one script to assign licenses. So the two can interact between the tools I showed in the first slides and do all the technical part. Of course, we had shell programming. We will do that the same way as if we were not automating. The only thing we did was to use the automation tool to integrate all the steps required to resolve an incident. I'll jump this part so you can see how the tool interacts with the end user. So you can see after the PowerShell is executed, the success and the fail ones are separated, so our analysts can work on the processes that failed, and our robot writes processes and writes to the user the messages necessary for them to continue their job. So this is the part our tool is capable of doing that a human could do, and what differentiates our work. It completes the status, the resolution, the notes, everything. Three weeks to do that, okay? How we manage it to do that in such a pretty quick time, no? And quick efforts. First of all, the importance of the methodology. No, we deployed very well structured IT processes in our clients, and this helps our robots. No, if you remember well, we have two types of robots: the mini bots, that's what we are doing so far, and the cognitive ones. The cognitive ones would help you to structure the data and to understand what the user needs. I'll give you an example. If you need to create one server and you are being attended by a robot, the robot will understand you want a new server and is going to ask you questions to structure the data, to structure the information you want to have. So if you want a server, he's going to ask you, what type of server do you want? If it's Linux, if it's Windows, how many processors, how much memory do you want? So he will structure the data for you and create a server based on what you want. Of course, we don't have that in this type of project, so we structure the data before that. So our robots can act based on well-structured incidents. So you have incident types, you have categories, you have specific fields for parameters. Some of them are not so well structured. I'll give you an example. If you want to create a mailbox, you need the mailbox address, right? And this address is written on a text field. So the first level can write anything there, but you just need one information, that is the mail address. What a mail address have that other text doesn't have? The @ character, right? So we look for the @ we search the email, and then create a mailbox with that information. If the robot is not able to understand or recognize for what is in that text field, it goes into an error status, and one of our analysts goes there and reads and understands what needs to do. That is the 20% of the incidents we have, where our analysts have to analyze what happened. I think this is one smart way to deal with unstructured data, but it's a starting point. Or two, one thing that we had to deal with is with coding. We recorded an analyst working on the incidents, and the automation tool created a code. But that code is not able to deal with unexpected situations, like, for instance, if the web browser freezes, or if it gives an internal server error 500. So our tool is capable of restarting itself, or to create a log so our analysts can analyze afterwards and handle that situation. Where we want to get there. We started automation last year. This year we're working to improve what we're doing in automation, and we are moving the bots we have to a more sophisticated tool. We are moving from Auto-It to Automation Anywhere. And next year we are planning to start working on cognitive services and automation, and do a very high technology work, and see if we can improve our rate of tickets being solved by robots. One goal that I personally have is by 2020 to solve incidents by robots, or maybe a virtual assistant with our clients. Well, here I have some tips on what I found, and based on the experience I had, what to do and what not to do when starting working on automations. Try to automate and deploy automations for processes that are stable. You don't want to recode or rebuild automations for processes that are still under development, or still have constant and frequent changes. Try to automate things that involves as many FTEs as you can. If you have a team of 10 FTEs or more working on the same stuff, there you can look on and take a better look. You will find something to automate. One thing that happens is, once you start automating and working on that, you find new and better opportunities for automations. After you automate the first process, then you think, I can automate that too, and then you start automating much more processes than you had. Large volumes, try to find something that you do a lot of times, and maybe, like Keith said, a reconciliation process you run once a month, but you have peaks. You have one period of the month you have to run a reconciliation. Why not automate that and save effort? Run processes that can be automated end-to-end, so you can save efforts on that, like we are doing. We are assigning incidents, resolving, and then communicating user end-to-end. We don't need to work on incidents, on some type of incidents. Take care with network. This is something we learned. If your network is unstable, your robots can get pretty confused and create errors, and if a robot doesn't know he didn't do one of the tasks, he'll go to the next task he was supposed to do, and that can bring more errors to you. So take care with network and system errors. One thing that we did was to look at the code that the automation tool did by itself, and then try to find where errors could occur and create exceptions to that so we could handle and our clients didn't notice we are using automation. And have a test environment. Of course, you don't want to try automation on production environment. That would be something that your client or your team would get really exposed if you do. So try that on your test, create a lab, do the integrations. Maybe if you can export data or incidents from for your real or your live environment to a test environment, you could do that and prevent errors. So I think that's it. Kate, do you want to add something?
No, I think you hit it.
So I'll open the questions. Please, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to. Yep, I think she'll give you the mic.
Talk loud, either way. Is it on? Oh, there we go. So the case study that you had with automation for like creation of mailboxes, DLs, that sort of thing, are we implementing this internally within Avanade yet? Are we doing much of this?
Yes, we are implementing this internally. Our team at Avanade is running these scripts. This is an internal case that we use it for one of our clients. So we are using that on Avanade.
Is it this automation working also with when there are some normal change where there are some human interaction? For example, if the customer need to approve one license upgrade or virtual machine creation, is it working or not?
Yeah, one of our processes requires a business area approval for assigning licenses, for instance. We're not managing Office 365 licenses, our client does. And one of the steps the client approves in the tool, the assigning of a license to a user. Our robots are separated into two steps. One before to check if the approval is signed or not. Once it gets signed, we have a batch that consolidates all the license we're going to apply, and the robot does that once it's signed. When you have human interaction, maybe you can split the part of the process that runs before the human interaction and after, so you can automate that this way. Okay, welcome.
I have a question. In your speech, you seems to be really explaining that you tried to do this and to avoid that the customer would be aware of that. Why?
This is something that is more cultural. Our client wants to be to interact with humans. No, don't ask me why, but they really like that, and they like to perceive we are applying effort for them. They don't want to have a robot that doesn't do what it's supposed to do. No, he want to have a most human as possible interaction, and that's what robots are intended to do, right? Our robots want to mimic what humans do, so we took care to create one experience to our users that is as much as close to a human would do.
Okay, thank you.
You said that best practice for the process to be automated. You mentioned that it's good to have at least 2 or multiple systems. Could you be more specific on why?
Yeah. If you have one system that does something like CRM or SAP or any system you have, your system is supposed to run and to automate and do the work for you. When you have 2 systems, you have different sources of data that you have to integrate. That's how automation can help us, to integrate different sources of data and performing tasks on different systems. So when you have 2 different, if you can improve one process in one only system, you would rather go to that system and improve one part of the code, or to create a new screen for the user. You won't do automation for that. But when you have 2 or more systems, that's where automation can help you. You can take 2 sources of data, 2 different technologies that would be hard to integrate, and use automation to do that for you.
Right. I mean, in RPA, the general thing is you have 2 systems with different impedances, right? They're not going to match up. So the RPA bot is really to bridge those 2 systems, assuming there's no web services. And I think that's something maybe, Edson, that wasn't really super clear, was there was a lot of constraints on the system not having a lot of web services and the integration points not really being well defined from a maybe HTTP or TCP perspective, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so in a scenario where you have a really well-defined, say, API manager or something like this, we'll then write code for it, right? But in some of these places where the vendor isn't mature, or it's a product that is really going to be end of life, and you really need to get efficiencies out of it, but you're not going to get it from the vendor. This is really, those 2 systems aren't ever going to talk to each other. That's the bridge.
When I saw your service catalog of automations, I thought how to reuse and scale. The thing is, if other regions or areas want to reuse or scale using that kind of service catalog, is that possible, and how to do that?
Do you mean by other clients? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, this is possible. This is feasible. But of course, we are doing that, actually. We have 2 more clients that we are deploying the automation. But we are using the same processes we have. So all the interactions with Office, with the Internet Explorer, Exchange Online, Skype for Business, we are keeping that part almost the same, but we are rebuilding the interaction with the incident tool. So these clients have different incident tools. One of them uses web services, so we can do a better and a more fancy integration between our automation tool and the ticketing tool too.
Right. And we have a similar project at our current client where they have a set of data scientists, and those data scientists want specific environments to hydrate the data and put different types of tools based on their works, the work they're going to be working on. Today we supply them a one-size-fits-all, put everything on it, opposed to supplying them something in that service catalog and then turning it on, getting the right data in place. So there's a lot of need for that. I think right now it's again just in that maturity process. Right now we supply them everything, a gold image, but our goal really is certainly to supply a fit-for-purpose type solution in the near future.
Yep. So I have a question similar to that. In terms of reusability of this product, right? There's going to be differences from client to client. You can't deny that. It's the value of automation is catering to custom things in your business, but how do you help identify the problems where automation is, or what have you done in the past that helps you with those things? So, right. I personally have an aptitude for laziness, so I can spot out like, hey, I don't want to do this. I know this person probably doesn't want to do this either. But do you do workshops to help identify problem areas, high impact areas, and like this is really a problem for your business? Because yeah, it's nice to say do high frequency, high time, or high impact, but how do you find those things? Or I have another question after this, too.
Sure. I think, as Edson said, I think his tips are solid, right? You find something that has really well-defined rules. You find something that has a pretty decent-sized headcount on an FTE perspective, and something that is pretty static, right? The rules aren't changing. You've been doing it for months, if not years, and there's not a lot of strategic value that you're adding. It's a commodity base, just we need to do it, right? So I think a lot of the tips that Edson supplied are really the starting points to find those particular areas that you want to start at least looking from an RPA perspective. Automation on a larger scale, it's a depends type answer, right?
Well, you need to also take care with critical processes. You don't want your automation to fail or to stop when you are executing critical processes, or you need to take care also with performance issues. So if you're doing a very integrated with different technologies, execute a development methodology like you would do in any other system to automation, just to ensure you're not going to have any troubles like that.
And I guess a follow-up would be more of an open-ended, fun question: is what are you most excited about to implement, to automate, to maybe not on your current project, but it's I guess open-ended. Because a lot of things, right, are high effort, low impact, but it's really cool. So what would you be excited to automate or implement RPA in?
My personal, I'm very excited about doing Azure automations, and this is what Keith did. So previous to this session, I was talking to him, and I told him I really want to implement what he did to our team. So automate Azure management, creation of new environments. So this is the next step and the next things I want to have automated.
Right, and I think exactly, and I think TD, you have the experience in this space too, right? So for us, we're still pretty static in the way we provision resources in Azure. I think fit for purpose is something that we have a lot of clients asking us how to do, especially in the data science space, because they have a lot of different needs and a lot of different tools that they want us to hydrate. And they don't want it all at once because it just takes too long. They want to put the right data at the right place at the right time. I think Azure Data Lakes is a big helper in that space. But for me, it's a more fit-for-purpose type delivery in automation instead of the one-size-fits-all. I think in most engineering processes, in a release pipeline, it's you know what you need to do, right? It's really the more boutique delivery at the department level, which Octopus and VSTS could orchestrate. So that to me is the one that we see it coming. We have a lot of ask, and we're just kind of scratching our head. How do we use ARM? How do we use scripting? How do we use all these other technologies to hydrate something that makes sense?
Well, I mean, I know personally you explore a lot of IoT stuff, right?
Yes, yeah.
I'm wondering if you saw potential or had any interest in automation in that sphere?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, again, that's this talk relative to a bunch of the other stuff we could talk about. The IoT space has tons of opportunity to automate. I mean, especially on board. Today, the onboard devices are pretty static. The way we manage to onboard in IoT situations is configuration files. I think Azure IoT Edge is kind of one of the bleeding edge opportunities to have fit-for-purpose code running on board, which, again, kind of blurs automation and really is more in the IoT space. But in automation, it would be fit-for-purpose, I think, is the thing I'm most interested in when it comes to cloud-based deployments. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Okay, I've got a question. Actually, I've a response with regards to what processes do you look for. Talk to Chris Lloyd-Jones and Neil Mack. They've got a booth outside. Avanade actually has a tool that'll help you look at processes and determine whether or not they are good processes for automation. But with regards to my question, you had mentioned the fact that the robots acted unpredictably when you had network problems. That certainly concerns me, and that you need to go back and do quite a bit of research. What sort of audit trail did your robots provide so that it made it easier to do that research?
Actually, we did an investigation on all the steps and all the process we did after we noticed that network could cause reliability problems in our robots. And then we created we did a verification on each step and created routine that checks the network, checks is everything okay, and check if the work was performed appropriately. Okay. Okay. So we have we managed to deal with network problems in that way. It's under the methodology to do so, but it's not something that the automation tool provided as a native function,
Fair enough. And then my other question is around change management. You talked about record. I heard record several times. Mm-hmm. What's involved in actually making changes to those processes? Do you have to re-record? Do you have to start from scratch when you do those changes? What's the level of effort there?
Yeah, depends on the nature of the change. Most of them were changes that changed some process change, like we said, approvals. We have one approval change that changed the part of the process where the approval were being applied. Uh-huh. So we needed to rebuild that part of the script, and we recorded again that part, but we didn't have to do all again. We did that specific part of the script on that change.
Okay, thank you. And I've got to admit, my questions are loaded questions. My name's Steve Rothwell from Blue Prism, and I'm sad to hear you weren't using our tool in your automations, and I highly recommend you talk to Chris and Neil. They'll give you some guidance on that.
Good.
So, thank you.
I will just ask one question. I could speak about RPA all day, so I'll try to be quick. But just no, in the interest of Avanade here, because I'm not from the cloud, and infrastructure background. So, but my question here is specifically: should we already start to engage with PSNO and whoever is required to change our methodology around Azure managed services, Office 365 managed services, and have a specific automation line within the service transition phase in our methodology? Because it appears like it's replicable. When I hear other questions, everyone could do this. So shouldn't we, already start to be more industrialized in applying automation and, whatever the tools is and whatever the processes are, but at least make sure that within our service transition, we identify the processes which could be candidates. What do you think about that? Is this something that you think is really replicable and should be baked into our standard approach to the market on that?
Yeah. I mean, I can certainly speak to the Azure stuff because we've been doing it for 2 years. So the PS&O team, we're working with them on building out assets for exactly this. I mean, right now, our big one is an IaaS accelerator, and it's publicly available. You can get to it at InnerSource, so innersource.avanade.com. We're building out assets there, which include both executive level decks that talk about configuration as code, infrastructure as code, everything that you would need to go in and present to a new team. Here's really the way of delivering infrastructure, even platform as a service. So yeah, I mean, there's discussions. We're building assets. We need to get momentum. I mean, we've been able to repeat at a large industrial over 4 or 5 projects with the templates we built, and we are doing it from .NET teams to Java teams to teams that are doing onboard C and C++. So we're able to replicate this across a pretty wide variety of technologies. So yeah, I mean, we're moving in the direction of building these assets. The PS&O team we're working with, and I think they have some stuff they're working on as well. It's probably within that modern engineering group, but I'm just not sure what the maturity of the assets are today. So yeah, I would talk with that team, certainly. Yeah.
I think it's a matter of time because this is new technology and it's still being developed. It's a matter of time, so we'll have integration platforms and pre-built things.
Yeah. And I'd certainly, I can speak days about that. If you have a need, we can certainly help out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate.